straight at this point. An earlier information we brought to you that the Arise News coverage of the launch of former military president General Babangida's autobiography, A Journey in Service, will be rebroadcast this morning from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Do make sure to stay tuned for that. Back to the moment, it's time to get our next guest on board, and he is Chris Wakobia, lawyer, public affairs analyst, and convener of the Country First Movement. He's joining us to share his thoughts on General Babangida's submissions on MKO Abiola June 12 annulment and a number of other issues, begging for answers in that autobiography. It's great to have you on the morning show. We don't have much time, so let's get straight into it. In his autobiography, Babangida suggests that his best friend at the time, General Sani Abacha, played a...
Oh, my wonderful people, welcome to Global Love Channel TV, where we bring you the latest happening around the globe. Yes, on this Global Love Channel TV, all we do here is just to bring the truth to naked it, all of us will witness it. Yes, this very video that you're about to watch, my wonderful people, please do well to watch the video to the very end of it. Don't skip any part of this video because it's worth watching. It will surprise you, it will shock you. It's a mind blowing. Yes, you will not regret watching this video. Watch the video to the very end of it. Yes, all we do here on this Global Love is just to bring the truth to naked it, all of us will witness it. Yeah, because the injustice that is going on in this world is becoming too much. Yeah, the earlier we wake up to begin to say the truth, is better for us, because it's only the truth the world shall be saved. Please, my wonderful people, as you're about to watch the video, do well to touch a hand for subscribe button, like and spread this message, and do well to touch a hand for notification message. Whenever we upload a new video, you'll be the first person to be notified. Let's go in there and watch it over. And don't forget that an injustice for one is an injustice for all. Always stand by the side of truth, because it's only the truth that the world shall be saved. Yes, let's go in there and watch the video. Don't touch the dial.
Significant role in the decision to annul the elections, portraying himself as a leader whose hands were tied by military and security pressures. But many Nigerians are asking, why now? Why, after all these years, has he decided to make these admissions? Some believe it's a sincere attempt at setting the record straight, while others see it as an effort to reshape his legacy and seek some form of public absolution before history is finalized. What do you think his real motivation is? And does this revelation serve as any practical purpose in resolving Nigerians' governance issues today?
Shay, it's my pleasure to be on. Good morning. Steve, it's my pleasure to be on with you. OG, good morning. Let me say very importantly that Thursday, the 20th of February 2025 was an effort, an attempt in rewriting history. We obviously know the truth. We know what happened in 1993. We are aware of the hundreds of thousands of our young people who were mowed down by Abacha's guns and goons. We are very definitely necessarily not desirous of IBB's validation as to who truly won the June 12 election. We knew. Everybody knows. And that's why I'm enamored by the reaction from the siblings, the family of Chief MKO Abiola. It was evident that Chief MKO Abiola won that election, and Muhammad Buhari had recognized him as a former president, and June 12 celebrated as Democracy Day. What is important to me and for posterity is the fact that we must put the figures straight, we must put issues in proper perspective, and I do not understand, like your question did clearly note, after 32 years, why that messy memoir? I do not understand why the attempt to rewrite history. We're aware that General IBB was, as it were, he rose to the highest rank of his career. And as a general, you should commit yourself first to the defense of nation. And if in that memoir and what he read out on Thursday, the February 20th, he admitted that he was scared for his life. He didn't want to die for truth, for right, and for justice. Then there's a big question. And I've heard a few people say that that book will serve for education, serve for information, and will serve to help position our country historically on the right track. And I'd say with the greatest sense of sincerity that that book will do no justice to our nation and our story. And I say this for three reasons. If General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida had called that meeting to atone for June 12th, to create an endowment for the victims of June 12th, to create an endowing fund for those who lost lives and limbs on account of his action and inaction due to June 12th. If he had come out to truly apologize and say, oh, so and so amount of monies are being positioned for those who lost lives and limbs on June 12th, and for my mistake and the way I wrongly handled history, it would have been profoundly right. But to admit as a general that you were lacking in courage and scruples, to admit that you could not put country first, bothers me, Sheita, and bothers everyone who was reaching about it. You see, there's something about generation the generation that was before 1970, you know, the generation before the war. I think they are too quick to overlooking the issues that affect our country. And there's something different about generations 1970 and I say this advisedly, perhaps because I'm a mystic. I say this with all sense of respect. Those who came immediately after independence have this sense of anything can be forgiven, anything can be allowed. But, you know, maybe because we were conceived through the throes and pains of the war. Maybe because our parents went through harrowing injustices and harrowing circumstances, and we want to interrogate how we lay fundamental praxis and parameters, if you like, for our nation. You don't wake up one day and come to present a book to Nigerians, and who dares say that we did not know that the 1966 15th January coup was not an Igbo coup? We all knew that people machinate, that people use those sentiments to divide us, our fault lines, is unfortunate. But we all knew that Nzogwu, Ifajuna and Co., Ademoyegu and several others were seemingly proactive. They talked about 10%ers and they talked about wanting to right the wrongs. That the coup failed and so many people preyed on our emotions and sentiments and branded it an Igbo coup when waiting for Babangida to tell us it was not an Igbo coup. We knew. People mischievously appropriated it to our Igbo brothers because they wanted to subjugate and marginalize the Igbos. We weren't waiting for IBB's book to know that. What IBB should have done was simply say to Nigerians, I am deeply sorry about what happened on June 12th. Say to the Abiola family, I'm deeply sorry about what happened on June 12th. And let me say, interestingly, this morning, I'm talking with my brother there, my big brother Steve is there. And Steve understands what I'm saying because he knows we have a common friend. And I'm saying this without equivocation. Coincidentally, that day, I had just sent money to the family of Richard Ogunderu for his medications. Richard Ogunderu was a young man who led the plane hijack in 1994, calling for the revalidation of June 12th, for the de-annulment of June 12th. So many of the young people who fought for June 12th are yet to get back to their feet.
All right.
And somebody comes to say, oh, I take responsibility. How do you take responsibility?
All right.
That, coincidentally, may be an act of history. On Thursday, he couldn't keep his medical appointment because perhaps his dad received the money I sent late. And so that medication, he's going to go back to the hospital on the 26th. There's so many families across Nigeria who are victims of June 12th.
All right.
There's the Oswa Abiola, people who ran away from Lagos because of June 12th. You don't wake up to just... And then for those who think that a military president can wake up and endow a presidential library, I think is wrong for our historicity. A presidential library is about rule of law. It's about those elected by the people to govern them. IBB was never elected by Nigerians to govern them. So he lacks the moral nexus. He lacks the legal parameter to endow or create a library. We must call a spade by its name.
All right, Professor.
I'm passionate about what I'm doing here today.
Professor Nwakobia, because of time, I'd like to just, revisit the questions.
I have tears in my eyes as I talk this morning.
All right. I mean, you and a lot of Nigerians feel the same pain at this moment. And, I know that you have called for an apology. I know that they call him the military president for a reason. He did not apologize, but he did take responsibility. And, leaders of thought, a lot of people have hailed him for taking that responsibility. And that, I know that you don't believe that Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, has done justice to his memory, just hearing from you by writing his book. But I believe Shaito had asked a question, which I would like for you to actually answer with this question, especially with that revelation that he was not responsible for the annulment of June 12, but that his friend, General Abacha, who was a chief of army staff, I believe at the time, was responsible. Now we have seen responses from Abacha's children, including Sadiq Abacha, who implied on Facebook that his father was a victim of jealousy and subtle betrayal. And then also we heard from Gumsu Abacha, who, had written weakling in a viral tweet. It was obviously a direct dig at IBB. I'd like your analysis on that particular revelation in that autobiography.
Oji, with the greatest sense of respect, I think I raised issues about cowardice in my opening. And let me say clearly that IBB was the commander-in-chief. If he was uncomfortable with Abacha, he should have retired Abacha. To come after 32 years to blame Abacha for the annulment of June 12 is cowardice, absolutely. To come after 32 years to tell us that he was under pressure I don't know those who advised him. I don't know why they got him to this foxfire. Let me say without equivocation and without mincing words that that was a terrible effort in image making. Those who got him to push responsibility to a dead man. Abacha is not here to explain what truly happened. And ask yourself, in that address where he told Nigerians that he had annulled June 12, he could have simply retired Abacha and nothing would have happened. So it was about his unwillingness to sacrifice himself for nation. It was his unwillingness to put country first. And there is nothing in that statement and in that book. Oji had spent the past 48 hours glancing through from page to page. That was why I started with the first point that got my Igbo brothers. When looking for somebody to tell us that the 1966 January 15th coup was not an Igbo coup, when looking for IBB to tell us that, we always knew that. And those who have preyed on that issue have been fair by half, have been smart by half. We know the truth about our country, and we know that the time has come for us to collectively call a spade by its name. And Oji, it is very important going forward as a nation that we call out IBB and its people. We'll call IBB and those who attended that event. Some have called it the charade, but I think that it was a meeting of individuals of the same tendencies and sentiments to tell us that it doesn't really matter how history judges them. Because, like I said, I must repeat, there is no such balance as military president. And you cannot endow a presidential library. It is to tell Nigerians that military purchase and coups is okay. And a president is, as it were, is supposed to have been elected by the people. So if you want to endow a presidential library, you must be democratically elected by the people. So we don't have a problem with Obasanjo's presidential library. If Buhari wakes up tomorrow to create and endow a presidential library, it is not wrong, it's not against the law because it was elected by the people in 2015.
All right.
IBB was never elected. IBB was never elected. So we must wake up to the urgency and the reality of now. We must, as a nation, learn to put issues properly, put the beams and the pegs in the proper place. Save and except that is done, we'll be dealing great hardship and injustice to posterity. You cannot have a military president endow a library. That's to say that impunity is right. That's to say that anybody can just wake up tomorrow and sack the parliament and throw away our constitution and after 20 years endow a library. We must put issues in proper perspective.
All right, Chris, thanks so much. Let me first thank you for drawing attention to the plight of that young man, Richard Ogunderu, who was the leader of the movement for the advancement of democracy as at that time that you referred to. I hope that he survives it. But his story, like that of the other three gentlemen friends of his, you know.
Richard, I don't have money. Let me say, Steve, I'm not interrupting. I don't have money, but if you call Daddy, he will tell you that time and again, almost on a weekly basis, I send money for the upkeep of that young man.
No, that's fine,
and
Chris.
I support for his medicals.
I'm just saying that, you know, his
how
story
do we,
is part
how
of
do you
why
wake up to
we
tell
can't
us
forget.
stories about June 12th without thinking about those people.
Absolutely. But let's move on, Chris, to the question. We really don't have time. I guess this will be the last question for you. You used an important word, atonement, which you said was missing in all that General Babangida did at that book launch and fundraising that day. I would like to add the word healing to it. And in doing that is to ask you what your thoughts are as to the rich guest list and the amount of money raised for the purpose that you have now described. It might even be considered as illegitimate. So when you see
absolutely
an array of people who ought to be worried about the sort of submissions that will come from a book from a man like General Babangida, but turn the occasion to that of humor and sarcasm, including IBB getting a Yoruba man, a former vice president, and an in-law to the great Awolowo clan as the book reviewer. Do you think that what all this says to you is that General Babangida has again succeeded in playing everybody, you know, in being true to his cognomen of Maradona? Because at the end of the day, he didn't apologize for anything. He didn't atone for anything. He only said that he took responsibility. And then people laughed it off, and then monies was raised. At the end of the day, will you say that that can bring any form of healing or atonement whatsoever? Or this is the story of Nigeria that 32 years after, we'll laugh it off and we just move on?
Steve, with tears in my eyes, let me say that two major individuals in that event broke my heart deeply. Our immediate past vice president is someone who I defer to greatly, and he calls me affectionately Junior. And I bled and I had a bile of anger when I saw him reviewing a book that, and that's why I said, Steve, that generation post-1990, if you don't have an advisor from generation post-1970, you go get one. There's something about those people. We think about putting the square pegs in square holes and doing things right. If I were called upon by my Egbo, the former vice president, Yemi Osinbajo, to advise, I would say don't review that book because it won't heal no wounds. I talked about atonement. Steve, at the Korodu Road, General Abacha's goons and guns mowed down over 100 people. Nobody has asked about their families. Those who came to Abuja to launch that book and gave IBB about 17 billion are grossly lacking in conscience and emotions. And I say this without equivocation. But we can fix our country. Our country will get better. The point is that we must, as a people, call a spade by its name. Let us not romanticize this situation. It's just, like you noted, jokes, sarcasm, and laughter. And then the second person whose presence there broke my heart, but I reread his speech, was President Olusegun Obasanjo, the man I call my dad. You know, he broke my heart, but looking at his speech, he raised fundamental issues, and he told IBB in clear terms that his book was going to raise a lot of questions, and it's raising a lot of questions. You see, I want to say clearly here that the journey to nationhood, my late father said something. I'm working on a book, The Sayings of My Dad. And he told me something. He said, to move a nation forward, you must create pillars of reference and monuments of deterrence. There is nothing in what happened on the 20th of February to show that IBB was truly remorseful, penitent, and was ready to atone. People can't come to Transcorp in Abuja to raise 17 billion for a man whose actions led to the death of hundreds of persons directly, thousands of persons indirectly, and a nation. The reason we still have flawed elections in our historicity was because nothing happened to the man who annulled the freest and the fairest election in our historicity. The reason we have court jesters and praise singers everywhere is because Nigerians salute anybody who can throw darts at them. But I know the difference between greed and satisfaction. I know the difference between greed and the ability to appreciate what life has thrown at you. Unfortunately, so many people do not understand that for us to fix this country and make Nigeria great again, we must draw proper lines, we must draw great margins, we must teach posterity the way to go. And I want to say clearly before my countrymen that an IBB library, presidential library, is an anathema. And it will not teach Nigerians the rule of law. It will not teach Nigerians the way to go. And I also want it on record that Abiola's family that have come out to say that they are not satisfied is not the only family. There are families that lost lives and limbs. And merely coming to say you take responsibility is not enough to satiate the pain that they're going through. And I have friends. I was involved in the protestation against the annulment of June 12th. As a young man closing out I was just about 21, we're all detained, we're harassed, we're harangued. And somebody just wakes up in the twilight of his life, comes to tell us that, oh, I take responsibility. What are you taking responsibility for? For the deaths? For those who lost lives and limbs? No, I think Nigerians must learn to interrogate these people. Nigerians must learn to lay fundamental practice for justice and for what is right. Yes. And Nigerians must also learn to ask very deep questions. If we want to build a country that is predicated on justice, equity, and fairness, let us challenge our fathers and ask them to lead rightly. And ask them to stop lying to us. We're not children anymore. All right, then. I think that the time has come for us to lay fundamental practice for a new nation. All
right, then. Thank you so much. Excellent submissions. Chris Wakobia, lawyer, public affairs analyst, and convener of Country First Movement. Thank you for joining us on this edition of The Morning.